A lot of enthusiasm. Let me take you inside the numbers. The Dow jumping 260 points, reclaiming the 26,000 mark for the first time since back in February. The S&P gained 22, while the Nasdaq rose a whopping 72 points. First time the Nasdaq has traded above 8,000. As you can well imagine, it didn't take the president not very long to celebrate the good news. In fact, he joked the record-setting day left him in a very good mood, about which the president of Kenya, as you see there in that Oval Office spray, said, hey, listen, if you're in a good mood, why don't you send a little bit our way, which, of course, drew very big laughs in the room. Meanwhile, another big day here at the White House yesterday on trade. As you mentioned, the president announcing that sweeping bilateral trade agreement with Mexico. President keeping his promise, as Brian said there, to scrap NAFTA. He spearheaded a deal that the White House says will strengthen protections for American workers while improving opportunities for the two countries to have a more balanced trade relationship.
I like to call this deal the United States-Mexico Trade Agreement. I think it's an elegant name. I think NAFTA has a lot of bad connotations for the United States because it was a ripoff. It was a deal that was a horrible deal for our country.
Okay, so one deal down, one more to go in the region. That's with Canada. Their trade minister, their foreign minister, in fact, is en route to Washington to try to stave off more tariffs between our two countries. Of course, we'll keep an eye on that. But for now, guys, back to you.
That's right. Kevin Cork live at the North Lawn of the White House. Thank you very much. So the pressure is on our neighbors to the north to get in on this deal. Mexico's on board. We're on board. Canada, you're next. Stuart Varney just told us about an hour ago this is a big win for the president.
Bottom line, it's a win for President Trump, it's a win for America, and Canada's foreign minister arrives in D.C. today to complete maybe the third leg. The pressure really is on. The ball is in their court, and the president's given them a choice. Join in, negotiate, or face tariffs.
Right, and of course, when it comes to Canada, they're really going to focus on the farmers and dairy, where there's a 300% tariff. I'm sure Canada's got some complaints about us, so we'll see if we can move this forward. For those people who think the president is anti-Hispanic, or doesn't like Mexicans or doesn't respect Mexico, oops. What did he just do now? Forget about Canada. Let's focus on Mexico. President Nieto engineered it. The socialist new guy was all for it. Together, he already put together a three-way deal between one incoming, one outgoing government. So far, that's a stunner and a success story. I cannot wait to see what Canada comes to the table with.
It is quite interesting that we've seen the president renegotiate NAFTA with Mexico before Canada has even come to the table.
Squeeze play.
It is pretty amazing, but it's going to be very interesting to see, especially going into the midterm elections, how Democrats on Capitol Hill react to this. They've been for redoing NAFTA for years, but the question is whether they will choose resistance or whether they will choose some progress on these trade deals they've called for to be reformed for a very long time.
Right, because keep in mind, there's not enough time in this Congress to vote on this. That would mean that it would come after the midterms. There's a possibility Nancy Pelosi and company could be running the House. Historically, the Democrats have not been on board when it comes to trade deals with the Republicans. We're going to talk politics and so much more with Larry Kudlow, the director of National Economic Council. He will be live with us in about 20 minutes to talk on this very subject. So Tiger Woods had finished his sensational comeback season, and as he gets ready for the Ryder Cup, he met with the press. And one of the questions, and it was this question just was relentless, so it has 4 follow-ups to it, was about Tiger Woods and your relationship with President Trump. When he said, I respect the office and I've known the president for years, that wasn't good enough. So they followed up and says, well, what about the fact that he's had all these battles with LeBron James and others? Listen.
I think a lot of people, especially people of color, immigrants, feel threatened by him, by his policies. He's thrown himself into sports debates in terms of race with LeBron James, with the anthem. What do you say to people who might find it interesting that you have, I guess, a friendly relationship with him?
Well, he's the president of the United States, and you have to respect the office. And no matter who's in the office, you may dislike personality or the politics, but we all must respect the office.
We all must respect the office. And Katie, that part really has set some people off.
I just can't believe that this question, I can never imagine this question would be asked of Barack Obama, of an athlete, or anybody else who happened to have a friendship or a cordial relationship with them. I mean, respecting the office used to be a basic tenet of how we operate in our civility in this country. And the question wasn't being asked once to really get an answer. It was asked 4 times because they wanted Tiger Woods to say something negative about the president. And it wasn't about getting an answer like he gave. It was about trying to bait him into saying something poor about the president and disowning his friendship with the president.
Well, this was a topic last night on ESPN. Here's a conversation between Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith on this exact topic.
We must respect the office, therefore that confers respect to the occupant. Tiger, is that what you're saying? If that's what you're saying, that is a stupid comment. I don't even know if he believes that that's what he's saying.
Well, first of all, we don't know what Tiger Woods believes. He's Camblinasian. He's not black. When he got arrested, he was black.
I don't know what that means, but I just thought it was a non-controversial answer. For them to go off on his answer, I thought was stunning. I also think that it's going to be great to talk to Jim Brown in about 10 minutes about his take, because he came out and says, I find myself in support of the president, and he says, I know that's not going to be popular in the black community, and he joins Herschel Walker, George Foreman, Mike Tyson, Dennis Rodman, as prominent athletes of color that also support the president.
Max Kellerman followed up and he said that the office holder needs to respect the office, and he feels that Donald Trump does not. Let us know what you think about this topic. Email us, friendsoffoxnews.com, tweet or Facebook. We read it all day long.
Yeah, if Jillian, you want to talk to us, you don't have to use social media. You could just yell.
I could do that. I can yell from my back corner there.
You can. I don't mind.
So we're talking about this video, guys, and it really gives you chills if you watch it. So take a look. A panicked woman caught on camera ringing doorbells in the middle of the night, wearing nothing but a T-shirt, and with what appears to be broken shackles or something of that nature on her wrists. You can see right there. Really strange. Police in Montgomery County, Texas, now searching for her, reviewing surveillance footage from one of the homes. There were many, by the way, that she rang the doorbells up around 3:30 in the morning. The woman doesn't match any missing persons reports. The 9/11 trial in Guantanamo is moving so slow it has outlasted the judge. Colonel James Pohl is retiring from the military after 38 years of service. He's presided over the terror case involving 5 prisoners accused of planning and aiding the 9/11 attack since 2012. The case is bogged down in pretrial hearings due to battles over what evidence can be used against the men. Key primaries today on the march to the midterms. In Florida, Trump-backed Congressman Ron DeSantis takes on Adam Putnam in the Republican primary for governor. DeSantis joined us earlier, feeling confident ahead of today's vote.
I think you're going to see a strong victory, but a victory that shows strength in all corners of Florida. We have a big, diverse state, and you got to be able to compete in Miami. You got to be able to compete in Pensacola, and I think I've demonstrated that, and I think the results tonight will reflect that.
In the Florida Senate race, current Governor Rick Scott is the GOP favorite to take on incumbent Democrat Bill Nelson. In Arizona, a 3-way Republican race headlines the Arizona Senate primary to fill the retiring Jeff Flake seat. And take a look at this. A routine foul ball at a Cubs game turns into this.
Catch the ball, tip the cap, chug the beer.
Or chug part of the beer, because you don't really get all of it there. But nice catch anyway. And as for the whole getting the beer into the mouth thing, not so much. But hey, I feel like we see this stuff all the time. How did they catch them in the cups?
Good question.
Well, you got to believe in yourself.
My question is, why so many beer stories? You just showed us the beer motel.
People like beer, Steve.
You should get free beer for life for catching that ball.
I know. No kidding.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jillian.
Yep.
All right. In less than an hour, Bruce Orr will go behind closed doors on Capitol Hill to answer a lot of questions. Sarah Carter, the reporter, is going to join us next to break down what questions he probably will be asked.
Plus, a firefighter jumps into action after gunfire erupts at a convenience store, using his body to shield women and children. The terrifying moments were caught on camera.
Everybody want to make a toast?
Salvation.
The family and to my son. Rick, I owe all this to you.
Redemption.
Less fragile family, and I don't want it to come apart. Let's not break this, Rick. America is the future. It's our future.
At King's Hawaiian Foods, we believe that when great food and laughs are shared with others, life's just more fun. And who better to share it with than those closest to us? our neighbors. So, pull the grill out front, America. Be sure to have plenty of King's Hawaiian buns and barbecue sauce on hand. And let's make this the summer of the block party. King's Hawaiian Foods. Next time you're grilling, try our delicious King's Hawaiian barbecue sauces, crafted with the irresistible flavors of the islands.
Everybody loves the Bowflex Max Trainer. Just listen to what these real people are saying.
The Max Trainer is unlike any other piece of equipment I've ever tried. It's a great full body workout.
You're really torching those calories. Press the button, 14 minutes, and you're done.
It used to take me a full hour to get the workout I'm getting in 14 minutes on Max Trainer. I lost 15 pounds in 10 weeks. It's unbelievable.
I lost 31 pounds and I feel great. The Max Trainer console lets you know exactly where you need to be. And so start pushing as hard as you can.
Max interval training was the big difference. It's short bursts, and then you recover, and then you start it again. I lost 8 pounds in 10 weeks. Nice and flat, it's great.
You can pull, you can push. I felt it in my arms. I lost 30 pounds in 10 weeks. I'm 54, but I'm in the best shape of my life.
Go to ordermaxtrainer.com to learn about 18-month special financing and how you can save $425 with our Labor Day sale. It's all at ordermaxtrainer.com.
If you need a ride across town, well, there's an app for that. What about if you need help with small chores around your house? Well, now there's an app for that too. The Tackle app connects you with background check providers that are standing by to help you with dozens of chores like house cleaning, yard work, junk removal, and much more. All jobs are pre-priced, so there's no waiting for appointments, no estimates, and no negotiating. Download the Tackle app for free or go to tackle.com. That's Tackle. Leave nothing undone.
What if you never had to sort your pills? And taking your medication was this easy. PillPack is a new kind of pharmacy. We'll sort your medication and deliver it directly to your door. It's your medication made easy.
With tough food, your dentures may slip and fall. New Fix-A-Dent Ultra Max Hold gives you the strongest hold ever to lock your dentures. So now you can eat tough food without worry. Fix-A-Dent and forget it.
There's no limit to what you can achieve. And now there's no limit to how. Introducing Purdue University Global, a public online university for working adults.
Fox News Channel on Sirius XM. Your favorite shows on Channel 114. Plus, every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News headlines 24/7 at Channel 115.
I think that Bruce Orr is a disgrace with his wife Nellie. For him to be in the Justice Department and to be doing what he did, that is a disgrace.
Demoted Department of Justice official Bruce Orr set to testify before members of the House Oversight and Judiciary Committees later on today. So what are the most pressing issues that need to be addressed during his testimony? Let's ask Fox News contributor Sarah Carter. She's been following the story since it first broke. She joins us live from our nation's capital. So, you know, Sarah, one of the things I want to know is why was this guy who at the Department of Justice was a drug prosecutor?
That's right.
At a very high level. Why was he taking all the secret stuff about Russia to the boss? I don't get it.
A lot of people don't get this, Steve. He was the number 4 guy at the DOJ. In 2016, I've heard this from a number of DEA agents and other agents that were working cases with the DOJ at the time. He was basically falling off his job. He wasn't doing his job there. And now they say, well, look, it was because Bruce Orr was so focused on President, on then incoming candidate Trump. And he was working on that. And in President-elect Trump, He had spent most of his time dealing with Christopher Steele. Now that all these text messages come out, look, Bruce Orr was in more than 60 times in communication with Christopher Steele. And I think some of the biggest questions, one of them is going to be, for sure, who authorized you to be the back channel after the FBI fired Christopher Steele for leaking to the media?
Well, I think we know why the guy who was the drug prosecutor was presenting the stuff to the boss at the FBI, because he was getting it from his wife who worked for Fusion GPS. And now as we fast forward to today, I've heard that what they want to know is, why were you still funneling things from Chris Steele to Robert Mueller's team after Chris Steele had been fired for leaking to the press?
Absolutely. So not only was he trying to get Christopher Steele involved in the Mueller investigation, he was moving information to the FBI. Even more important, Steve, I think, is the information that's recently come out that the DOJ, members of the DOJ, we don't know who yet, were leaking information to the media, then using those media reports to get the FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court warrant on Carter Page.
Right. And Mark Meadows, I saw this tweet. He's one of the high-ranking oversight guys in the House. He tweeted out a couple of things. Bruce Orr's wife, Nellie, worked for the firm hired by the Clinton campaign to write the dossier. Bruce Orr gave the dossier to the FBI, and it goes on. But also, he has revealed that apparently they deposed somebody on Friday of last week, and this FBI official said, yeah, you know, we routinely use press stories, news stories, as evidence when it comes to things like FISA.
It's incredible because, first of all, you would expect that the FBI would launch their own investigation. Yeah. This is what happened with the dossier. Here we have an unverified dossier, a salacious dossier, a dossier that has not been proven in more than 2 years, that its own author, Christopher Steele, an ex-British spy, doesn't even believe is actually accurate. He himself testified in the London courts, no, I can't verify the veracity of my own dossier because he got it from Russians.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Why is Bruce Orr still there?
That's a question that a lot of congressional members have. Well, we don't know, but I guess we'll find out today.
I think we probably will. All right. Sarah Carter, who's been covering this. Sarah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Boy, oh, boy. Meanwhile, President Trump thanking Jim Brown after the football legend says he is really pulling for the president and his policies. Jim Brown's going to join Brian live next.
At Bear, our roots run deep. So chances are you've seen us around the house, or around the yard, on the shelf, or even out in the field. Your mom knew she could always count on us, and your grandma did too. Because for over 150 years, we've been right by your side, advancing the health of the people, plants, and pets you love. So from all of us at Bayer, thank you for trusting in us, then and now.
For those who are driven by purpose, who are building others instead of just wealth, giving back and never giving up, TIAA will help you live your definition of success. Whether you have $500 or $5 million. Investing, advice, banking, retirement. TIAA. Start today at TIAA.org.
Promote what makes your business great with Vistaprint. Whether it's a business card, a banner, or a postcard, we have the paper stocks, sizes, and design options to create marketing that's right for your business. Give it a try with 500 standard business cards starting at just $9.99 when you use code VP500 at Vistaprint.com.
The closer you get to home, the more you know the commute is worth it. For all the work you pour into this place, you sure get a lot more out of it. You and that John Deere tractor. So versatile, you can keep dreaming up projects all the way home. It's a longer drive, but just like a John Deere, it's worth it. Nothing runs like a Deere. Now you can own a 1E subcompact tractor for just $99 a month. Learn more at your John Deere dealer.
Inside everyone is an incredible cook. Someone who can cook an amazing meal any night of the week. Farm fresh ingredients, step-by-step recipes, delivered to your door for as low as $7.49 a meal. Visit BlueApron.com to get $40 off.
These folks, they don't have time to go to the post office. They have businesses to grow. customers to care for, lives to get home to. They use Stamps.com. Print discounted postage for any letter, any package, anytime, right from your computer. All the amazing services of the post office, only cheaper. Get our special TV offer, a 4-week trial plus postage and a digital scale. Go to Stamps.com/try and never go to the post office again.
Hall of Fame athlete, activist, been relevant for over 50 years on the national and international stage, voices support for the President of the United States. What's controversial about that? Well, it's controversial in today's day and age because the president's President Trump, and that athlete turned activist impact person is Jim Brown. Jim Brown, welcome to Fox and Friends.
Thank you, Brian. It's good to be on with you.
Jim, why have you looked at this president and said, I support what he's doing?
Well, I'll tell you, the greatest thing about America is that we all have our opinions and our thoughts. Nobody is totally correct in everything that they do. I have access to the president, and anytime I have access to the president and he will listen to my thoughts, that's all I can ask of him. And that's what I do. So this president is accessible, and he's different, he's challenging, and he pays attention to what I say.
The numbers look pretty promising. Black unemployment is down, wages are up. His approval rating in the black community is still low, but it's doubled really since the spring of 2018. You're somebody who likes some of the things that he's doing. What is he doing that you like?
Well, to tell you the truth, there's two things. North Korea, that is highly important to me, because the scenario there have changed, and he has made it change. And a couple of months ago, I was looking at a nuclear war. And so he's dealing with that gentleman that runs that country in a manner that makes me feel very proud of him. The other thing that has passed my mind is right now, but I'll tell you this. The number one thing is that if I have an idea and a concept, and I'm working my butt off to make this a better country, and I put in a call to the president, and he will answer me, what else can I ask him to do? He has his job to do, and I also have my job to do as a citizen that has a certain amount of influence. And so I don't blame him and what his office can produce. I look at what I can produce in the black community and the community at large, and all the individuals that I can influence that will work with us to make this a better country. So we should look at ourselves first before we look at the president.
Right. Do you feel as though he's producing for the black community?
Well, I'll tell you, it's very hard to produce for the black community in a certain way. The black community, and I'm a part of the black community, has a responsibility regardless of what the president does. And if you have a homicide rate within your black community, then it's not the president that's created that homicide rate. It's the black community itself that needs to address it. So I don't want to just put everything on him. And I'm sorry to say that the black community is not doing what we should do, and that includes myself. I can work harder, I can donate more money, I can go more places, but we have to be able to, as citizens, bring something that the president can join forces with and triple the effectiveness of it.
Hey, Jim, do you look at this president, the times you say him one-on-one before and after him being president, is he a racist?
I'm so glad you asked me that. Of course not. You know, is America racist? Of course not. The emancipation, the advancement of black people in this country is based upon white people who risk their lives just to do the right thing to make the playing field equal and balanced. So we always talk about the negative, but what about the positive? How many black athletes are millionaires because of those fans, white fans that go to those games? The NBA, the National Football League, those organizations would be out of business if it were not for people of, not of color, but white people that go to those games and support those teams. So we have to give credit to the positive aspect of what people are doing in America and stop going to the negative first.
Well said. Jim, you said, hey, listen, and I watched you on Hard Knocks on HBO, and you said, I would never be kneeling for the national anthem. Shannon Sharpe, a Hall of Fame tight end, said this on Fox, says, if what Jim Brown's saying is true, if what Colin Kaepernick is doing in 2017 is wrong, then what Jim Brown did in 1967 was wrong when he led a protest to support Muhammad Ali for being a conscientious objector to the war. What do you say?
I say thanks. No, the bottom line is this. We should never denigrate our flag and our national anthem. We should always be Americans first, and we should work our butts off to do the right thing and make it a better country. But to not respect your flag and your national anthem is something that I would never do.
I want you to hear, by the way, people that have joined you in the support of the president: George Foreman, Dennis Rodman, Kanye West, Herschel Walker, Mike Tyson. I want you to hear what Spike Lee said at Cannes Film Festival about America.
United States of America was built upon the genocide of Native people and slavery. That is the fabric of the United States of America.
What's your response?
Well, I'm sure that's not the full quote. I'm sure there's more in Spike's mind. And if you want to point to slavery and call it for what it is, he's right. But if you look at the other side of it, the people that gave their lives to make it better for those slaves, you look at Harriet Tubman and that particular movement, you look at the progress that has been led by Caucasian people to deal with freedom, equality, and justice for black people. We are no longer in slavery. We have self-determination, and this country is the greatest country in the world. So although when you look at slavery, slavery is an abominable type of situation, it's the reality of our past, but we've gone way past that particular kind of situation. And we should look at the positive rather than the negative and do all the things that we can do, not point the finger at someone else, but we can do as a society to make things better in our country.
Right. Hey, Jim, I'm out of time, but I'll say one thing. One of the greatest things that happened to me is become friends with you. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Brian. Vice versa.
Back in a moment.
The new 6-hour mesquite smoked short rib sandwich is officially the most interesting sandwich you can get from a drive-thru. And you can pair it with a side of the most interesting potato shapes. Arby's, we have the meat.
Okay, we need to get all your school supplies today.
School, grade, done.
Done.
Hit the snooze button and get low prices on school supplies all summer long, like this case of paper for only $29.99 at Office Depot Office Max.
We'd heard of Angie's List, but we didn't really know what it did.
I know they've got reviews for home pros, but so do a lot of websites.
I didn't want to pay to join. Then I found out it's free. Wait, it's free?
Free to check ratings, read reviews.
And Angie's List reviews are written by real customers. So I know the pros have done quality work.
And now they'll even match my project with a few qualified pros for the job.
And it's all free.
To get the most reviews from real customers, all for free, go to angieslist.com today.
For small businesses, payroll is complex and time-consuming, and mistakes can mean tax trouble. Sure Payroll makes it easy to pay employees and file federal, state, and local taxes with accuracy guaranteed, all done online in minutes, and with award-winning support, even on weekends and evenings. More time for you, less time on payroll and taxes. For 1 month of free payroll, visit surepayroll.com now or call 844-SURE-PAYROLL. surepayroll.com.